The one guy I decide that I'll date when I finally get to go away to college, and it turns out that he has this secret that he didn't tell me. Well, I guess he didn't tell anybody, because I was super surprised one day when he shows up with a gift that he wants to give me. Well, I was expecting maybe flowers or chocolate, but what I got shocked me to my core. It was a $7,000 handbag, and it made me question, who the heck am I dating? I grew up with my parents in a mediocre house in the northern part of the country. We were a family of 4. Me, my mom, dad, and sister, Jess. After my sister was born, I was no longer the star of the family like I used to be. But this story is not about my sister and me. It's about a guy that I fell in love with and, well, moved in together. This story will take you on a whirlpool, and be sure to read the full thing. So, basically, everything started with my sister and me. As I said earlier, my parents were obsessed with my little sister. Everything they did revolved around her. Taking from holidays, clothes shopping, home decor, family dinners, and anything you can possibly imagine. I somewhat felt invisible. Although I kind of hated that, it also allowed me to get away with a few things, because the most attention was always on her. For example, the times when I sneaked out of the house to party with friends, my parents didn't notice that at all because they were busy putting Jess to sleep and hanging out with her. Don't worry, I'm not a party freak, and that was just a one-time thing that I promised myself not to do again. And yeah, my mom did find out later on, and since then she has forbidden me from locking my door. Talk about the height of controlling. And by the way, last winter we went to Antarctica because my pampered sister wanted to go there for the holidays. My parents thought about how cute she would look in a little snowsuit. Meanwhile, I was freezing because my parents forgot to buy me a snowsuit, and I had to share my dad's oversized gray jacket, which looked hideous on me. I could not even take a single good photo to share with my friends on Instagram. I'm sure by now it's clear to you that I had no say in the family. It was just my sister. I was starting to get really fed up with that kind of life, so for my finals, I worked really hard to get straight A's, even though it was very difficult with lots of project work, back-to-back case studies and presentations. Nevertheless, I was able to become top of my class. On the other hand, my sister Jess, who is by the way only a 4th grader, failed in almost all of her subjects. You won't believe that my parents barely even made me frown. I happily shared my marks, but they didn't show much concern. I began to search for a university outside of my town, and finally, I got into one. It was a full-ride scholarship, so I happily applied. When I broke the news to my family, my sister was really upset, and you guessed it, so were my parents because they didn't want Jess to be unhappy, and for goodness sake, they wanted me to give up my scholarship because Jess was sad. I stormed to my room and locked the door. I was disheartened, and no one even came to my room to make sure I was okay. So, I quickly got onto my laptop and accepted the scholarship without telling my parents. After a bit of time, I was hungry, so I went down. My parents and Jess were already having dinner. I could tell that Dad knew that I'd felt bad, so he tried to strike up a conversation, and I didn't feel like replying, so I just kept quiet. "You're so selfish. Your behavior really broke your sister's heart," Mother said, and I was furious and said, "You mean I broke her heart? What about my heart, Mom? You don't love me at all." So my dad barged in between us and said, "Okay, dear, enough of that. I know you've done great in your studies, and your mom and I love you, and you're also very proud of your scholarship. Can we talk about the scholarship tomorrow, dear?" Father suggested, and I screamed no at the top of my voice and told them all loud and clear I've accepted the scholarship and would leave for university in a week. My sister began weeping, and my mom starts to console her that they would ask my cousin to come stay at their house. I stared at my mom in disbelief, and all my doubts were clear. My mom did not love me and was immediately ready to get me replaced for her other daughter. As broken-hearted as I was, the heartbreak got me ready to move out of the house and start my new life in the new chapter. A week's passed, and in a blink of an eye, it was the day for me to leave. I waved them goodbye and hopped in a taxi, even though Dad insisted that he would drop me off at college, but Mom stopped him, saying I'm a grown-up now and I'm capable to make my own decisions. The university was about 6 hours from my place, and I arrived there at midnight. But there were several other students arriving around the same time, so it was fine. I sat down on a couch near the reception and closed my eyes for a second. What felt like a second was about 2 hours. I suddenly woke up by someone calling out my name. I opened my eyes in shock, and there was a handsome dude standing there waiting for me. He looked like Brad Pitt, straight out of a 90s movie. His eyes were deep blue in color like the ocean, and his lips were fully plump, like ripe red strawberries, and his hair was blonde and silky. Oh my. Am I dreaming? I asked myself and pinched myself, and ow, it hurt. I wasn't dreaming. Everything was real. The guy and me, and it was definitely love at first sight. So I quickly put away my scarf and stood up and said, "Hello." Swiftly replied, "Do you want me to show you around the university?" Yeah. Are you asking me on a date?" I actually work at the student council, so it's my job to ask students if they would like a tour." I was red as a tomato. I should have kept my mouth shut and just listened. I always tend to embarrass myself, but at that moment he said these words. I wouldn't mind going on a date with a pretty girl like you, though." He kind of saved the day, I would say, and we just both introduced each other. His name was Joey. He took me around the university, and the views were great, but not as great as you. He complimented me with one after another cheesy pickup lines. I was completely smitten. Life could not be any better. A private tour of the entire university with a handsome man like him who was literally straight out of a movie. Joey even gave me his jacket when the wind started getting breezy. I was immediately falling for him sooner than I thought. Then he took me to my dorm where I'd be staying for a month until I got a part-time job at the university. I put all my stuff there, and then Joey took me out for some food. You might be wondering what time it was. Well, it was 4 a.m. And honestly, I wasn't sleepy at all. Joey took me to one of his favorite places to eat that was still open, and I had a wholesome meal. I loved my spaghetti with shrimp shallots. But the one there was beyond good. After a bit of time, Joey dropped me at my dorm, and everything was going fine. Joey and I began to hang out. I began to love my college life. Update number 1, a few months later. Hey guys, it's been a few months since I've last posted here, and Joey and I getting together, and something crazy happened a few days ago. Joey and I were hanging out at the same restaurant when he got down on one knee with a rose in his mouth and asked if I'd like to be his girlfriend. In a matter of a month, I've also started falling for him, so there was no way that I could ever say no. I agreed. And soon we decided to move in together. Having an apartment of my own was great. I have no nagging parents or annoying sisters, and on top of that, I could share my room with the love of my life and not my sister, who used to disturb me by snoring all night long. Although, I could think of so many pros of living away from my parents, but deep down my heart kind of missed them. But every time my heart sank a little thinking about how it was living with them. I made myself tough thinking they don't care about me, and it seemed to work for me at the time. Since my parents were out of the picture, I had to work insanely hard to save up money for rent, food, and well, everything else. Thank goodness I've gotten this full-ride scholarship, or else paying the college fee would have been very difficult. On the other hand, my boyfriend Joey was lucky enough that he didn't have to work like me. His parents paid his bills and everything, but even after living together, I never heard Joey talk about his parents or even say a word about them. He was really quite secretive when it came to his parents, and in case you were wondering, Joey's not your typical university cool cat. He was someone that didn't hang out with anyone else other than me. Sure, he had some friends at the student council, but he did not hang out with them very often. He was selective when it came to choosing friends. So, I always wondered, what did he do during the day? While I was out at work. One day, the insecure part of me decides to sneak up on him. Okay, fine. Well, that was wrong, but it was the new series that I've been watching on Netflix where the guy cheats on his girlfriend while she goes out to work, and I'd like to put the blame on that. So, before leaving for college, I told Joey I would be working till 10 p.m. that night. He told me he'd miss me, and I left. As the clock ticked to 8 p.m., I called Joey up and asked him where he was. He told me he was at the apartment and hung up abruptly. That made me even more suspicious, and I wondered whether he might have a girl over at our apartment, or all the bad things that he could possibly have done. As I walked near our apartment, I noticed that the lights were turned off. My heart immediately raced, and what is Joey doing with the lights turned off? I asked myself as I tiptoed inside. It didn't take long for me to apprehend that there's no one there. I was super confused but did not call Joey. I kept the lights turned off and waited for him on the couch. In a matter of no time, approximately around 9:45 p.m., Joey comes inside the apartment. He was shocked to find me sitting there patiently waiting, and he says, "What are you doing there like a psychopath?" I replied back asking where he's been with a big duffel bag in his hand. My question washed the color from his face, and he looked at me like I was some kind of ghost. "What's in the bag?"
No, nothing.
Joey replied, trying to hide away the items inside the bag, and that made me even more curious. I insisted that he shows me what was hidden inside the duffel bag. Joey made a nervous face but later agreed that he would show it to me. I opened the duffel bag, and to my surprise, Joey had bought me a surprise gift because my birthday was coming up.
I felt like such a fool for not trusting him enough.
"I'm sorry," I said, and he made me promise that I would never sneak into his bag or anything because he might have a surprise planned for me. So I also promised him that I would never, ever do that again. Well, you might be wondering what a surprise gift was. Well, okay, let me clear it out for you, because it was expensive.
It was a Prada bag.
It retails for about $7,200. Even its duplication cost $500 or more. I was really surprised as to how Joey was able to afford that bag for me, even if it is a knockoff. Heck, it's at least $500. It must have been a second-hand dupe. I was sure of it. I thought to myself and kept the Prada bag safely in my cupboard, even though
it looked genuine.
A week or so passed by, and it was finally my birthday, so I decided to wear my Prada bag for my birthday. I took the bag out and went out with the girlies for lunch. They were all shocked to see the bag that my guy gifted me. One of my best friends is a crazy fashion fanatic, and she knows everything about designer. So when she saw the bag, she could immediately tell that it was, in fact, a custom-made Prada bag that retails from anywhere between $9 to $10,000.
Heck, it was even that much secondhand.
I was blown away. The bag that I was wearing was not secondhand, but it was an original custom-made bag.
Dude, is Joey that rich?
One of my friends asked, and I was in shock myself, so I couldn't answer them. I made up my mind that Joey had been a rich guy that his parents sent away for university so that he could fall in love with a modest girl like me. And then we would get married and run their multi-million-dollar business empire.
Oh, the kind of romantic rich stories that I was fantasizing.
Suddenly, one moment from the past flashed into my eyes. Joey and I have been hanging out in our apartment when Joey told me that his parents are out of town, so he won't be able to pay half of the rent for a few months, but he promised he would pay me back. Let me give you a little bit of a backstory. So basically that happened in the second month of our moving in. After that, he stopped splitting the rent. I was the only person paying the rent for 5 months straight, without any questions asked. So if he was crazy rich, why would he have trouble paying the rent? I wondered to myself, maybe he's just testing whether I'm after his money or not. Trust me, I have a gazillion amounts of thoughts going through my mind at a rapid speed. "What are you thinking for so long?" one of the girls asked. I told them it was nothing, and we just carried on with our food. We also changed the topic to something else, and suddenly, one of the girls reminded me that it was my first birthday without my parents. My heart felt heavy, and yeah, it's true. I miss my family, but they'd always been very selfish towards me, and all at once, quite unexpectedly, my phone rang. I picked it up. It was my mother. It was nearly a year since I've heard my mom's voice. She began crying and apologizing before I even got a chance to say hello. I could tell my mom's pain from the voice, and I broke down in tears too. I soon apprehended that Jess and Dad were also around, because they apologized as well and wished me a happy birthday. My heart swelled up in pride and joy. It was really the best birthday. I forgave them and promised that I'll come back home as soon as I could. Mom told me that she's been counting the days until my birthday because she was too embarrassed for being selfish. Later, I came to know that Mom had found my diary in one of my dressers. So she went through my diary, and that was when she realized how I've been feeling throughout the years. I'm thankful for the diary because had it not been for that, Mom would have simply never understood me. So, apart from my family and I patched it up, let's continue to the actual story. Okay, where were we? Yeah, my birthday party. After talking to my family and my friends, they were very happy for me too. We all did not even realize 3.5 hours had passed by. I wanted to give the girls a birthday treat, but since I've changed my purse, I didn't carry cash with me that day. I'm the kind of person who hates making any sort of payment through a credit card. I'm old school. I tend to carry cash always, so that day I was forced to make a payment through my credit card. But right when I gave the card to the cashier, my card declined. My head began to spin. How could that possibly be? I thought to myself. I asked the cashier to try again multiple times, which only resulted in the card being blocked. I was embarrassed. One of the girls paid for the meal, and I promised to pay her back in cash because I was certain that my card was just acting up. The bank usually closed at 5, and it was just 3, so I rushed to my bank and told them my issue. What I heard after that shocked me to the core. My credit limit. It's been used up. I then asked the bank to print out the statement. Okay, this is where everything gets tricky. The banker hands me over a bank statement where I see crazy purchases done for the card. To name a few, car loans, gym memberships, food, and the list went on and on. My heart raced and I kept repeating, I didn't make these purchases, these aren't mine. While the banker looked at me with a straight face and probably thought that it's all that I could say. But I was telling the truth. I had not bought any of these. In fact, I mentioned earlier I always preferred cash over card. Hearing me continuously state that I did not make those payments, the banker must have felt pity and asked me to file a report. My eyes were blurry with tears flowing down, and I wrote the letter, and as I did that, my mom called me. Before even saying hello, I began to burst to cry and told her what happened, and my mom was shocked and gave the phone to my dad, who was a banker of 6 years himself. He told me not to worry and asked the banker if they could give any information on when the purchases were made, and if the thief had left any clues like their signature or, well, anything. So, the banker looked through it, combed through everything, and luckily was able to tell me that those payments have been made in the past 5 months. Update number 2. Well, if you think that last update was insane, wait till you fully read this update. After that day, I began to suspect everyone in my class and workplace. One of the most strange purchases was an old Game Boy. I took note of every single individual in my life who had purchased the Nintendo Switch, and after that I made sure whether they have bought a car or gone to the gym. No matter what I did, I was certainly going nowhere. I was simply being skeptical of everything and everyone. One day, I was mentally tired from everything and decided to stay back home while my boyfriend went to his classes. He could have skipped it, but it was his finals and there's no way that he could stay back. I was still sleeping while he left for university, so as soon as he left, I decided I should do something productive while I stayed back home. I began to clean, started with the wardrobe. Just as I was doing it, I noticed that the Prada purse which Joey gifted me was gone. My heart felt heavy, and the gift was even more special to me because it was gifted by Joey. I looked around everywhere but could not find it. Finally, I was left searching in two places. One was my boyfriend's wardrobe, and two was his duffel bag. I opened his wardrobe. It was a mess, and every cloth came crashing down upon my face. I was disappointed, since I had to clean two wardrobes now. Well, nevertheless, I took all of his clothes out and begun to fold clothes one by one, totally forgetting about my bag, and at that point, just when I finished folding up the clothes, the thought about my Prada bag came back again, so I took hold of Joey's duffel bag. And right when I was about to open the chain of the bag, I remembered my promise. "It's just a bag," I said to myself, and I opened it up. Trust me, the duffel bag was not just a regular bag, it was like a magical bag with so many items packed inside. My Prada purse was the first one I saw. I had found it. But right when I was about to close it, I noticed other designer purses and even clothes with tags. I quickly called up my friends and asked her if those were original. She told me she could not tell precisely through video, but gave a 90% guarantee that yes, apparently they do look original. I really couldn't believe my boyfriend had bought all these designer things for me, when he had been struggling to pay the rent. My curiosity heightened and I wanted to know more, so I took out all the items from the duffel bag one by one, until there was nothing left in there. In total, there were 5 bags, 15 clothing items including t-shirts, dresses, and skirts, and mind you, all of them were either Prada, Guess, Gucci, Valentino, or others. My boyfriend had an entire treasure hidden inside the duffel bag. I thought it would be best to ask him about it, but when a white piece of paper drew my attention, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was a receipt of a car loan payment. Red flag. I was immediately alarmed. My boyfriend didn't have a car. Or did he? I questioned myself all at once, and it hit me. I knew nothing about Joey. Neither did I know his friends. I didn't know his family members. I felt I was too dumb to share a room with someone that I didn't even know. So I began to scour through everything for evidence, and finally I found what I was looking for. That darn Game Boy. Update number 3. Final update of the story. How I wish this update would turn otherwise, but sadly it's true. I was dumb enough to trust a guy that I met at college. There were enough clues that suggested Joey had stolen my credit card and used it without my permission. That's definitely stealing, don't you think? I'd be darned if you say no. You're going to hate me for this, but my heart still made excuses, like maybe Joey didn't tell me because he was afraid I would deny it, and he really wanted to surprise me. Someone please give that old version of me a tight slap. Thank goodness, within a few minutes I got my crap together and was ready to teach that liar a big ol' fat lesson. So, I called up my girlies and told them the truth about Joey. Luckily, we found all the credit card bills inside the duffel bag, and I kept them safely to show them to the bank. Just as we were about to look for other evidence, Joey stood up at the door, completely shocked. "What are you guys doing?" "Well, I could ask you the same thing, Joey. What are you doing with all these items, and who gave you permission to use my credit card without my consent?" Look, I gotta explain." But it was too late, however. I gave him the chance to speak his words.
I love you so much, you know that, right? I did this for us. I was going to propose to you. All this designer stuff is yours. Take it. And the stuff that I purchased with your credit card, well, it's for us. He said those words as I burst into laughter and told him to say the truth or I would hear him spit the truth to the police station. So, Joey stopped sugarcoating his lies and told the truth that he would steal designer stuff from shopping malls. He had his entire group of friends involved in that business, and they were good apparently. They would later sell them at the second-hand store with a great profit margin. I was terrified of the guy that I was sharing my room with, and I asked him, "Who are you, Joey?" But Joey couldn't say a word. However, he kept telling me that he loved me and did it all for our future. I was dumb, but not to that extent. So I immediately called up the cops and they took Joey with him. Joey was obligated to pay me monetary compensation beyond what he stolen from me, and it was my first heartbreak, but it also helped me collect enough money to start my own clothing business, which I was always passionate about. No, the story hasn't ended yet. After graduation, I moved back to my parents' neighborhood. My mom and dad were deeply sorry for being selfish and inconsiderate towards me growing up. Now, I live in my new home, which I bought after making a significant amount of profit from my clothing store. Other than that, there is also a happy ending in regard to my love life. I found another man who loves me dearly and is not a con artist like Joey. We both work hard in our lives, and it's been 3 years that we've been married and are now blessed with a 1-year-old son. By the way, now you decide, am I the a-hole for exposing my boyfriend for the thief that he is? So to me, I think the most gigantic red flag of this story was when OP found out that her boyfriend, well, he wasn't giving any secrets to her about his family, even giving her any information about him, wouldn't tell her what he did as a job, and the fact that he missed rent almost exactly at the point he moved in and continued to not pay rent for 5 months, I think she said. To me, that's a gigantic red flag. And then to top it all off, he brings you this expensive, elegant, handmade bag that's worth over $7,000, but he can't pay your rent? Boom, biggest red flag of the story. Let me know your thoughts about this, guys. Go ahead and drop it down below in the comment section. I want to thank you for joining me on this one. This is definitely one of those situations where you just are like, what the heck? I want to hear your opinion. The comment section on this one was a little strange. Half of the people were saying how OP is the a-hole for treating her boyfriend like that. Oh, how she should have known how he was because of all the signs that he gave up. But the other half of the comments were more sympathetic, saying, hey, she basically got tricked by this guy. It was her first love. So tell me which side you're on. Do you think OP is clueless, or do you think she was just misled? Give me your honest opinion, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the comment section.